Welcome to another episode of One Miss Pod. I'm Zach Long.
I'm Kelly Warner.
This week we're talking about Horrors of Malformed Men from 1969, a film that I confused with last week's film,
Matango, Attack of the Mushroom People.
which, God, that title's just great. I love that title so much. Horrors of Malformed Men, though, also great title.
It is.
So, how was your week, Kel?
Up and down, typical week in 2020. But I'm kind of a little bit in the dumps today, but I'm all right. How are you doing? What's up with you?
Oh, I'm exhausted. I started a new job, so
Oh,
that's wearing me out. I now work at a chicken barn.
yeah. I think you said something in the last episode about that. And are you
Mm-hmm.
liking it?
I'm liking it, so I'm doing that. I just took on a write-in project, so I'm balancing those two.
Cool.
But it's like I get up early, I work, I'm home a little bit after lunchtime,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like I still have a bunch of time in my day that I can do stuff, and that's nice.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, and less harsh deadlines and curiosity about will they ever pay me, the ghostwriting people.
Yeah. Well, since I don't ghost right now, there's no curiosity about that anymore. It's nice.
Yeah,
It's
that's
such
good.
a relief. Now all right. Well, let's get a little inside baseball here for a second.
Mm.
I just decided to fucking leave. Like I didn't go through like, oh, let me tell them. I just left because I was done. And if I stayed another second at that job, I was gonna fucking blow my brains out. And so
Mm.
like, I left, and then I get an email from them, and I'm like, nope, delete that, block that.
Mm.
I get a voicemail from them, and I'm like, nope, delete that. I knew I should have never gave them my number. But it's like it takes them so bloody long to even like get around to paying me that it was like surprising how quick they were to get at me when they wanted shit from me.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Ain't that just the way of it?
Yeah.
Fuck them though.
Yeah. I'm glad you're done with them.
They are a horrible, horrible company, and I'm going to take some time out of one of the weeks coming up to say a few things about that.
Okay, cool.
Not on the show, but on just
Yeah.
online.
Yeah, okay. All right. Um
How about yourself? Anything besides the ups and downs? Watch
uh
anything good lately?
yeah, you know what? I can't even remember.
Oh, I've been there.
I did start writing again, so at least there's that.
Ooh, I did not know
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Only just the other day. Yeah. So I'm back to writing again. So that feels good.
We can cut this part here, but what are you working on?
The I'm continuing work on the short stories of the kaiju history of the world
Ah,
thing. It just felt easy to move back into that, and also to write more short form fiction, but also something that I'm not getting back in the middle of an old story. I'm just getting back in a universe that I already created. So it felt
mm-hmm.
comfortable, you know.
Well, I mean, I've been your friend long enough to know that like getting back at all is something that was deeply uncomfortable for a while. So the fact that getting back is feeling good, like I'm very happy to see that, and I look
Yeah.
forward to reading more of those because the ones I've read so far are pretty good.
Okay,
I'm writing
cool.
a short story about a chicken that I'll send you after.
Oh, inspired by true events.
Yes, which when you see the event that it is, you're gonna be like, oh shit. My first day of work was an odd one.
Okay. All right. um, before we get to the movie, some streaming and Blu-ray news. Okay, so for streaming, don't have much to report other than there's a new Asian horror movie called The Bridge Curse on Netflix. It's a 2020, I guess. At least Netflix says it's 2020. Taiwanese horror film about a ghost haunting a bridge at a campus or whatever. I don't know. For disc related news, the South Korean monster movie Monstrum that our friend Andrew Roebuck spoke very highly of, and it's streaming now on Shutter. We'll be getting a Blu-ray release in the States November 17th. And
Was
sort of
that the? Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I
Yeah.
was just gonna say, was that the one that he talked about on Scriptophobic?
Yes, yes, it was. Yeah.
Ah, okay, yeah, I wanted to see that. Okay.
Yeah, that's like a historical one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sort of J horror adjacent is Takashi Miike's um superhero comedy Zebra Man is coming to Blu-ray October 27th from Media Blasters. So that's not really horror. It has
it is adjacent, like it
yeah,
is.
it's Miike, and it's got a lot of familiar people that you might know from his horror films. So yeah.
I actually get that one confused with one of Troma's films quite often.
Hmm.
Sergeant Kabuki Man by Troma. I get confused with Zebra Man.
Oh, I've never even heard of that one.
Well, it's Troma, which means it's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean,
That's right. I said it. Come at me, internet. I don't give a fuck. You're not my real dad.
I would agree with you though. Yeah. So that's the disc and streaming updates I have for you, and I
Hmm.
guess we can move right into the discussion of Teruo Ishii's 1969 horror exploitation weirdo mystery movie Horrors of Malformed Men.
So, Horrors of Malformed Men is an adaptation of a. I just blanked on his bloody name.
Edogawa Rampo.
Thank you. I had a feeling you would have that. I actually
Mm.
have my character. One of my characters that I play right now in D&D is a monk named Rampo.
Do you
As
know
a
that?
way of
Did
as a
you?
way of respecting him. Sorry.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Did you know that? Okay, you know that Rampo isn't his real name, right?
Yep,
All right. Do you know what Rampo is? If do you know what it's kind of like meant to be? It's
I
meant
do
to be.
not.
It's kind of meant to be the romanized
Oh,
pronunciation
I
of
do know this.
Edgar Allan Poe.
I did know that. Okay, yes.
Yeah, Edogawa
Rampo.
Rampo. Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
Poe. Yep.
I think that's wild. I don't know. I don't know if that's funny to me, but
Well, he is like Japan's Poe mixed with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle because he invented a character and he did something like 12 or 13 novels and a bunch of short stories with this character.
mhm.
And Horrors of Malformed Men is an adaptation of that character's one of his books or shorts, and that is why the third act suddenly we go from being in this trippy sort of mind fuck visual
Yeah.
visual like nightmare of a film, which is where Ishii was probably most inspired to come on board,
Mhm.
and then it's just like now we're in a mystery. And it's like we figured out the
Yeah.
mystery. There's more mystery.
Yeah, and suddenly this character that was like background character says, "Haha, it is I, the master detective. I have been on this case for a long time. I disguised myself as some fucker that was cleaning your house and shit." And
Well, it's more than just that too, because it's not only just like, haha, I'm here and I was cleaning your house. So he was just like, aha, I was following from this moment at the jump before you knew anything was even happening.
yeah, basically he got a sniff of a mystery and he had to solve it, and it just led him
Well,
to everything. It's
well,
just
the sniff of the mystery he gets is so small too. He looks at the newspaper and he sees that for about 5 days straight, there's an ad looking like a really nice, really well paid position looking for a female, like a secretary,
mhm,
and that specifically they want women in there.
yeah.
And then on like day 6, it's no longer there, and he's like, "That's odd," as if like, well, maybe they just filled the role.
Right. Yeah, I know.
But he looks into it and he finds out that, and this is spoilers, but whatever. This isn't what the movie is about. This is a spectacle film.
Yeah.
He finds out that they were looking for they're hiring women who hadn't told anybody about coming to the job interview. Then they ship them out to an island. No, sorry. Then they ship them to an asylum, which is where the film starts. Until they've been in the asylum so long they're crazy. Then they go out to an island where they're at the island. They do medical surgeries on them to make them deformed, and then they just kind of actually have a really lovely romp and play. But the story, the plot of it is essentially there's a guy, he's in the asylum, he knows he doesn't belong there, someone tries to kill him, he escapes, he catches wind of a tune he knows that leads him to a town on the far edge of Japan, There he finds out that he has an identical scar to the heir to this family that died, so he pretends comes back from the grave as that guy, stays with the family, finds out the dad is on an island. He goes to the island, finds out, oh, that was my twin brother that died. I am actually part of this family. I was the doctor that was sent to learn how to do these mutations, and then we've come full. That's the whole story.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's as wild and weird as this movie is. I think you summed it up quite nicely.
It's not a film about its story.
No, it's
The
not.
story is there in order to get us to what really is just a lovely looking romp. Until you get into like the father being like, yes, I kidnapped women, yes, I I had this woman raped so that you're now made love to your sister.
Yeah, that the dad is kind of fucked.
Well,
Yeah,
the dad
but
is really fucked, and but it's very what one thing I like is considering that Ishii did like infernal torture in orgies of Edo. Like we hear about a rape, but we're not made to watch.
this is true. Yeah.
Like it's a very considering considering the possibility for sexual violence that this film has, and there's such a
Oh
possibility.
yeah, this is a
It
depraved movie.
doesn't have it though.
No.
It's like it's a depraved. It is a very depraved movie, but it's a depraved movie that's like on its best behavior, kind of.
Yes, I would actually kind of say that. With the note that if you're really not into the grotesque, you're probably not gonna like this.
It's not. It's not even. It's a different. It's a very specific type of grotesque, though. This isn't a movie where they're pulling bowels out and like being like, "Oh, look, I strung it
No,
up, and now
yeah,
you have to walk across the room."
yeah. This makes
That's a
you.
reference to a movie I hate.
This is more unease and like you're watching something and like for example the fucking part where the dad crouches down next to a woman in a cage that has something like a dog face and she forces her to eat grass. You know,
I loved that moment.
I mean, listen, it's a good weird moment, but it's
Okay,
also something that not a lot of people are up for.
yeah. Let's get. I'll put two things on the table.
Okay.
One, this movie, not the grotesque, but but the grotesque in this movie, it is played as deformity rather than gore. It is
Hmm.
about this is a film about deformity, which comes in the title, Malformed Men. But when you take away the deformity, what you have in this movie is basically a Zach Long kink fantasy.
Jesus Christ. Okay, expand.
Okay, let's get into this then.
Oh no.
I
maybe,
like
maybe I
pet.
regret that. I don't know.
I like pet play. If you're gonna act like a dog or act like a cat, okay, cool. I'm down with that. I'll give you pets and lots of loving. That's all. And so when you get into a lot of like the weirdness of that stuff, I was just like, ooh. Not the deformity and not later when you're like, oh, this story brings in non-consent, but like when we first come to this island, because the film up till now, the narrative has been odd, and that there's a lot of things
Mhm.
falling into place. We don't have a lot of grounding in it, but overall, visually, it's been very normal. But then we get to the island and we see like deformed jumpers doing like a Berksy Bugsley or whatever his fucking name was. Like it's like Gold Diggers in 1933. The way a bunch of deformed people are jumping in the water, all organized, and they're playing games and they're doing a bunch of. They're just. It looks like a fun time at a really weird summer camp. It's like oh, and the effects are pretty good, but you can tell because I mean it's 1969, they've aged, so it looks like a
I
fun
love the
summer
one
camp
part.
with a face painting program.
I love the one part earlier in the movie before they even get to the summer camp, where this one Buddhist monk's bald cap is coming off in the middle of a scene.
The Buddhist monks are fucking hilarious
They
in this
are though.
movie.
They
They
are.
are they show up and like they find the corpse, and so one Buddhist monk tricks the other into like carrying the body, and then once they get to like the doctor they're taking the body to, the doctor's wife or nurse, I'm not sure which, but like goes over and starts almost
Yeah.
not quite, but almost making out with one of
Yeah.
one of the Buddhist monks, who's then like, oh, don't worry, we used to date. It's just like it's so
it's
random.
it is. The whole movie is very strange. Now I want to talk a little bit about the okay, I just want to say, as far as deformities and or malformed and how we describe it as grotesque, the movie is making it grotesque. People that are that way need not be, are not, that's not how I see them, but the movie
No, no.
sees them that way. And also the movie goes to see, here's a bizarre thing about the villain's plan, that basically he's got this island, the summer camp, where he's turned everything into this bizarre, malformed and deformed uh oasis. But his idea, though, is that we're gonna deform so many people. We're gonna turn this person into a chicken and that person into a half man half goat. They have that in the movie. And then we're gonna go to Japan and we're gonna take over the world,
The
basically.
I the idea is flawed, to say the least. Because once again, I want to point out that his idea for taking over the world doesn't involve like, okay, we're gonna need the best thinkers and that. It's like, let's hire people who want a secretary job and then give them the deform them, and now let's take over the world with an army of secretaries.
Yeah, I mean, it is bizarre and a little bit see, I kind of like the fact that it's so nonsensical. It's this guy had no shot, and
He
that's
had
kind of.
no chance at all.
But here's the thing, though. But on that island, he lived like a god. To me, the movie kind of reminds me of Apocalypse Now or Heart of Darkness, where basically
Okay, yeah.
they keep going and going and they reach this place and it's like, oh, he's treated like a god, and it's just madness. It's just it's disgusting what they're doing here. But here he is in his element. You take him out of his element and he's just an insane person that likes fucking up people. But here he's God, and I kind of like that sort of. I was especially reminded of it when he takes who we learn, is a son, onto the boat, and they're going down the river and they're going past stuff, and it's like,
That's my favorite shot, or favorite
yeah,
moment.
yeah. And I want to talk a second about the actor that plays the villain, the
Bef-
father, Jogoro.
Before
The
we get there,
Yeah,
though,
yeah,
I
sure,
want
sure,
I
sure.
want to I want to build on a couple of the things you said, though.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you mentioned Apocalypse Now. The other one that
Mm.
is very clear is Island of Doctor Moreau.
Oh,
This
for
is
sure.
very
Absolutely,
clearly that.
absolutely. Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
wanted to pick up the thread about grotesquerie for a
Mm.
second,
Mm-hmm.
because what the film, there's two things that the film kind of like, for not two things, the film, there's 2 points. One is that the film itself is what is telling us these people are grotesque. Like
Yes.
that is not our judgment. It's literally what the film
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
stating. But the other thing that's worth noting is that the people are, they don't proclaim themselves to be that. You have the villain proclaiming that. So we're all, there's kind of a disconnect between the, like, the message of whether or not, like is the horror of malformed men simply looking at them on that, or is it that the malformed man is actually like the person that's doing this to others, which is my sort of reading.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of the people on that island are victims. A lot of them are too mentally ill to express that and like beg for help, but a lot of them are
Well,
clearly.
it's also, I don't think that they themselves are. I don't think their mental illness was what selected them for the island. And my understanding is that they took them. They basically
Drove
forced
them
them.
mad.
They drove them mad by putting them in an asylum and treating
Mm.
them like they were crazy until they went crazy.
Yeah, they like
So,
snapped. Yeah.
and the other real quick point on that is that the grotesqueries that we see in this, they're not realistic, really.
No, no,
They're
no.
over the top, and they're very clear. Like, they're clearly cartoon or costumes, but if we separate that and say, okay, let's buy it fully, you look at them and it's not like it's like, oh, there's a pinhead, or there is, I don't know what the actual term for that is. That might be offensive if it is. I'm sorry, but or and it's not like, oh, here's somebody who's missing half. It's not
It's
freaks.
not like no, it's not like it's not at all the stuff that you would see in a normal functioning society. This is stuff like dog person. This is stuff like woman surgically attached to someone with I
That one was one of my favorites, where it was just
acid
like you.
face.
My favorite was, oh, there's so many acid face in this. My favorite though is when it was like, okay, we don't really want to show you how they're connected, so you two stand butt to butt,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
that was the entire effect, because
Yeah,
they had to
and
save some money.
they wrapped like cloth around it. Like
Yeah,
it's hidden beneath that. Believe us. Yeah.
it's like a sack race, just two people stuck together, and then they're like,
Yeah.
ah, close enough. You're malformed now.
Yeah. The as I was, the villain actor, the father Jogoro, the guy that runs the place, the who moves so strangely. That's because
Hmm.
he's not an actor by training. He's a dancer. He does the what's known Buto dance, and it's very
Is that what he's
strange.
doing on the rocks when we first see
Yeah,
him? Because
basically, yeah.
when we first see him, we have a shot of this man whose hands are like kind of a little deformed, and like his skin starts to go to like pale white there, as
Yeah.
if his hands were covered in cocaine, and he just does this weird dance on the rocks while waves are crashing behind him.
Yeah, the movie basically stops for a minute to let this dude dance and be weird.
And it's great. That's one of the best
I
shots.
see that's the thing. I the villain is detestable and everything, but the performance is so you can't take your eyes off him. He moves so strangely. Um, yeah, Ishii has used him multiple times. Most notably for me was also a villain hunchback dancer in Blind Woman's Curse. The actor's name is Tatsumi
Oh, yeah,
Hijikata.
I know who you mean then. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and if you look up Buto dance on Google, you seriously the first question Google has is What is Buto dance, and why is it like this? Which is gives you some example of just why is it like this? It's
What
weird looking.
what was the
Um,
actor's name again? Sorry.
Tatsumi Hijikata. It's at the bottom on IMDb for what it's worth.
Tatsu. Okay. Yeah, I was just seeing if I knew him
Yeah,
from anything else.
he also was in Orgies of Edo. Um,
Oh, I was thinking he was, but I wasn't fully sure. Okay.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, that is a good movie.
I mean, shit. He did 3 movies with Ishii in 1969. I want to say this is Horrors of Malformed Men is the last film that Ishii made in 1969. Now let me tell you the titles of the films that he made. This is how many films he made in
I love.
1969.
Yeah, 1969 is an amazing year
Okay,
because of this list.
okay. Shameless, Abnormal, and Abusive Love, and then also uh, let's see, what's this? Orgies of Edo and Rising Dragons Iron Flesh and Inferno of Torture and Yakuza Law and Meiji Taisho Showa. So, and then Horrors of Malformed Men. That's all 1969, one director.
And Orgies of Edo and probably Infernal Torture will both end up on this show at some point.
Oh, okay.
On that, I can't speak for Inferno for sure because I haven't watched it yet. I do own it, but Orgies of Edo 100% is showing up on this show because this when we were talking about the fact that like this film seems like a really naughty film that's been on its best behavior. That's a great description for Orgies of Edo too, because the way that Ishii's films, at least the ones from this period, tend to work is if I were to give you a verbal description of all the stuff in it, that's going to sound 1,000 times worse than the way it's portrayed. It's actually portrayed with a lot of class.
But with that being said, considering Japan's censor laws for deformities and how they didn't like the idea of it resembling Hiroshima victims, one can understand that this touched a nerve when it came out in '69.
Yeah, but it's funny that the thing that touched the nerve about this is probably the element that watching it today, it would be noted, but it would be the most like, okay, and then kind of moved past, and then like the description of like Like the description or the depiction even of like the mental asylum at the beginning would probably get more heat than this does.
Probably so. Yeah.
It's a good sign of how sort of the times have changed.
Yeah, and I also think like stuff like the one character that's a supporting character that you think is all right and then turns out to be a perverted villain, that sort of stuff. That's probably some of the area that turns out to be maybe some content that plays a little bit off today. But yeah.
I think the biggest reason that will play off is because people will be like, "Oh, I was supposed to give a fuck about that guy."
That's true
That.
too.
That's the whole third act is really going. Oh, okay. Well, there's when you talk about a mystery story, there's the who done it.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a crime, you don't know who did it. There's also the how done it, and that how did this crime happen, or how
Mm-hmm.
is this
Mm-hmm.
crime about to happen. Then you have this is a oh there was a question sort of film because you think it is you think the question is the who am I,
Yeah.
and then that gets tabled and shoved aside, and then and then finding out who I am doesn't do anything like the main character of this movie, the guy that fucking drives the plot forward for an hour and 10 minutes, disappears in the last 20 minutes, so that a detective you don't know, but who in Japan would have been well known at that point.
Right. Right.
That would have been
It's
like
like Sherlock taking off.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is exactly what I was going to say too. It's Sherlock just shows up, so people in Japan would be like, "Oh, okay," but our main character disappears until like at the end. There's just a message where it's just like there's a line about how like oh we even though we're in love and even though we found out that we're now half siblings, like it doesn't matter. We're too far in love, so we'll die with this island. And they go and like they throw themselves or assume presumably they throw themselves off. I don't remember if we actually saw that part. But then
Well,
we see their faces in the fucking sky like it was Lion King.
oh no, 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 no! I took that to mean that they blew themselves up in some incredibly artsy, interpretational, cheap special effects way. That they blew themselves up with the island. We actually see their bodies intercoupled blow up, and we see their hands like clutching as they fly through the sky, and then the heads fly through the sky shouting "Mom!" It's
Okay. I thought I knew that they died. I thought it was thrown off in that, but regardless, like literally, what we see at the end is like a Lion King esque.
yeah.
Hey, here's a message from the stars moment. Which comes at the end of Horrors of Malformed Men, a movie that opened on titties.
It did actually, yeah.
The nudity at the start of this film is wonderful. Like you start with like a shot of titties, then a creepy face, and then titties again, and you're like, okay, I see what you're doing, sir.
Oh,
I
it's a weird movie, but but I feel like here's the thing. I feel like for a good hour of it, and it's like an hour and 39 minutes. I feel like for a good hour of it, Ishii is in complete control. It's weird, but he knows what he's doing, and it's a very confident and it's like dreaming, you know. But
and then
then
the ending is tacked on.
yeah, and I really I gotta take off stars for that ending because it
I
just
agree.
it's such a it slams on the brakes so hard and I don't enjoy it. It's
I
not yeah.
I think that's probably a result of it being an adaptation.
Yeah.
I think that he basic like I bet you I haven't read it, but I bet you the story gets either the story is about that guy, the detective guy going through, and if it's not, I bet you the fact that people know that it's this guy going in, they're waiting for him to show up. Like I bet you that the ending, like if you took the whole film and if that is how the novel works, I bet you that the ending would work in book form where it doesn't in
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
form.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the movie takes from I mean, it might have a core source material, but it takes from multiple Rampo stories. So,
Ah.
who knows? But yeah.
Um. one of the things to talk about orgies of Edo again for real quick
Mm-hmm.
is that um, the opening of Orgies of Edo is this sequence that's disconnected from the rest. It's basically just a title sequence. But the title sequence is like the river ride in this. It
Mm.
is hallucinatory and amazing. And I just looked it up. So, what Horrors of Malformed Men is based on are two novels that he wrote. It's
Okay.
Strange Tale of Panorama Island and The Demon of the Lonely Isle. And
Okay.
so what I'm going to guess is that this is a complete guess though, but
Mm-hmm.
I bet you that one of those is about a person who tries to take over the role of somebody because he looks like them to find out that he was actually a disowned son from the family.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a story on its own. And then a story about the horrors happening, like the demon of this island doing weird shit.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a story on its own, and I bet you that's what get combined.
yeah, I'm willing to believe that.
And it would actually that would make a lot of sense too, because if you look at what you mentioned, the first 2/3 of this is really strong and solid, and that's almost like, okay, here's a story on its own. Then the story starts to break down. You get to the other place. Now Ishii gets to do what he does best, which is weirdness. He gets to do that for a bit, but then he has to bring these two conclusions together into one conclusion and somehow sell it.
Yeah.
That doesn't work.
It doesn't work as well as it should. No, it doesn't. Yeah. I mean, I like the film, but the ending, the final act, I don't like as much. It does go out with a bang, though.
It yeah, it goes out like oh god damn. Oh god damn. What the fuck was that movie called? It does go out like Secrets of the Telegian.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Like just let's blow it all up and walk away.
Yeah. 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 But
Except that Secrets of Telegion was much more charming when its explosion and it murdered the entire town with everybody around it.
yeah. But this one, at least, the people that died got to say goodbye to mom after death.
Yeah, which is like okay. It's really weird that the lovers who die get to say bye to the same mom.
Yeah. It's. Oh, it's a fucked up movie. It is fucked up.
I love, like, there's actually a little bit more of the Telegian in it now that I think about it. Like,
Mm,
so there's the part where the guy escapes from the asylum and he hears somebody humming a song. It's this young woman. He goes and talks to her and basically is like, "Oh, I'll meet you tomorrow to get information about where you heard this." And
mm-hmm.
so he goes and he meets her, and as he's meeting her, she suddenly dies, and he pulls the knife out of her, and it's from her front. So you're like, oh my god, did he stab her and not know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we following somebody who's are we following an unreliable narrator? And the
Right.
answer
Yeah.
is not really, actually. The narrator doesn't remember things, but that doesn't make him unreliable. We're following him at the point where he's already doesn't remember.
Right.
So he is reliable. He's in that for what it's worth. And it turns out that, like you said, it was the fucking side character nobody cares about apparently threw a knife and killed her. But that scene reminds me of the first murder in the Telegian there, where it's just like you're in a place where you get people around you, and then suddenly there's a murder anyway.
Yeah.
And circus, it had a circus in this one. It had a what was it, like a horror house in the other.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah.
Because that was the one where it starts and the guy
Yeah.
he's
That's
got the
right.
two
Yeah.
cute girls
No.
in the.
Yeah. And also, for what it's worth, the horror house, the House of Horrors, uh, also kind of reminds me of a different Ishii movie, The Blind Woman's Curse, which had its own, you know.
Did that have a
Also,
house of mirrors in it?
I'm not certain, but
There was.
it did have a House of Horrors, which was run by the dancer, the Hunchback, the same character, actor, dancer guy.
So there's a tie there to The Secret of the Telegian, and there's also the tie to last week's movie in that they both deal with the idea of deformity, but also in Attack of the Mushroom People, you have the boat crash. In this, the horrors still come from the island, and they have to leave and go to a place where they're sequestered.
Mm-hmm.
And both, and that's why I think I confuse these two movies, is because they both deal with an island where things happen.
Yeah, I find it difficult to confuse them just because of how fucking weird and gross this movie can be sometimes. But yeah, no, they're I get it though, I get it. But they're both '60s Japanese movies about uh people with weird shit on their faces on a deserted island. So yeah.
I want to give a shout out to the assassin in the start of this, the guy and the mental asylum there. Our character, when he first starts, our main character is being held at knife point by a woman. She
Mm-hmm.
stabs him. The guard comes in. She stabs the guard. He mocks pain and then reveals that the knife is just a toy push knife.
Mm-hmm.
And then they take our main guy, put him in his thing, and there's just this bald dude who's just staring daggers
Yeah,
at him,
yeah, yeah.
and he's got such a cool looking face. And then he comes in the middle of the night to like try to strangle and kill our main guy, and so he has to fight back and save himself. And so it was an attempt to murder him that actually gets him on the run in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So like no matter what angle you look at it at, like our main character really gets the shit end of the stick. He gets sent off to go become a medical person, uh, gets stuck in an asylum, gets amnesia, gets an attempted assassination. Now the law wants him. Then he gets caught up in a love triangle between a bunch of people. Gets brought to the island, realizes he's been banging his sister, and then dies in an explosion. That
but
was like a
he
week and
was
a half of
happy.
his life.
But he was happy at the
He
end.
was he was happy at the end, and that
Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that it was his sister. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's not quite an Oedipus complex, but he definitely had a complex with his sister's puss.
Jesus. Hmm.
This is also a very interesting film for kind of I would use 1969 and especially Ishii's films from 1969 to represent sort of a movement from in Japanese horror from the 60s to the 70s. Like they kind of bridged the gap between going into like weirder and weirder stuff.
Mm-hmm. There, there was this kind of like period where at least at some studios, it felt like they were basically able to do whatever the fuck they wanted for a little bit in horror. It was like these were B movies. In Japan most movies were released in double bills. And so like the B movie got to do what it wanted, and sometimes that was some really weird shit. And I think we kind of benefited for it years later.
It's interesting how much the Japanese film industry took from the American film industry because they took the idea. First off, I mean, we could count entire plots that were taken,
Oh, for
uh,
sure.
but not counting that, assuming that that's just natural. We'd look at like the fact that they did double bills. They did split it up into your mainstream houses and your art cinemas, which were also the ones that would tend to play pink films and such. And there was a lot of that going on in the production. So I wonder if one of the reasons that we started to see this idea that you could get away with anything is the other important fact is that the biggest exporter of or the Japan's biggest import when it came to films was from America. And so, if they're importing a lot of American films, and in 1968 we see the Hays Code drop and the MPAA come into effect, so they had a new freedom in film there. I wonder if this represented Japan find a new freedom because now their imports were now being more extreme as well.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't really have the information right now to back it up, but it sounds legit, you know.
Yeah, I don't either. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that I wonder about, and would if somebody out there listening knows and can point me towards where I can read about it on my own, that would be lovely.
um, but yeah, one of the other things that I feel like that these Ishii movies of the period kind of um were I guess you could say harbinger of is the later extreme pink movies that came. You know, this feels like it has a little bit of that, you know.
There's a good what was that called?
The
There's a
book.
good book called Beyond the Pink Curtain that talks. It only very briefly talks about Ishii, but
Mm,
Ishii did 8 of these torture pink films, and Orgies of Edo and Infernal of Torture both fit on that bill. But
mm.
when you watch Orgies of Edo, you'll realize he was not really making a pink film. I feel like he tricked the distributors on that one. He was making a period horror basically, but there was a big movement of the sort of tortury pink films at this period, which Ichi did really help to rein in. But the later movement to things like Tumbling Doll of Flesh or what was that teacher rape one I watched, which I still want to. I don't know. I scourged it from my brain because I'm lucky.
Yeah,
But
I'm not a big fan of the torture pink ones, to be honest.
well, what I was going to say though is like the torture pink ones that first came out, they had an artistry to them that rather than a focus on the pure like
Mhm, mhm,
degradation. But then Japan got VHS and stuff, and porn started to become available. And when
mhm.
porn became available, and you could get hardcore, now there was limitations. You can't show pubic hair or nudity, or lower
uh,
nudity.
right, yeah.
uh, but you could show pretty much anything you want. And one of the things that happened was there was a movement towards more fetish space stuff, which could then hit us kind of replace that. And so when that started coming out, and that's ridiculously cheap to make porn. So there was no market for pink films, and that not even the rough ones, unless they went really rough. And so like the 80s and the 90s are absolutely fucking horrendous. They make whatever we see from like Ishii in this period is like watching a PG movie compared to what pink films were to become, because they were battling not with other films but with pornography itself.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why in the 90s you saw a movement away, and then you saw a v like there was a movement of, it was something like 5 or 6 key filmmakers who used V cinema in order to do a sort of pink film revival. That then faded away because nobody gave a fuck. And then the next revival was the recent one that saw like Wet Woman in the Wind and Anti Porno get made.
Mm.
And at that point, like pink film became art film, because it's really like it's almost like postmodern pink film. That's the point in my opinion, where pink film gets most interesting. Unless you go back to the 50s and the very early 60s, when pink film was highly politicized, and you had people who were like, they shot softcore films and then went to get involved in the crisis in the Middle East. Like, really weird political stuff was tied
Mm.
into them because
I,
nobody was policing it.
I've never seen any of those. I don't think
I,
so.
I I haven't seen them. I've only studied them because of that
Right.
book. But
Yeah.
they, to me, that seems to be like a very interesting, because like when you think pink film, you think, okay, like this is just some soft core to hear some nudity, have fun, go jerk off in the back of the theater, clean up after yourself. Oh, you didn't? Well, shit, poor Usher. But they were actually, for a period of time, it was like, oh, no government agency is really looking at these. Most of the public dismisses them, and so they became a playground where you could get a really controversial political ideas out there.
I have seen one film. I want to say it was called Under the Carp Banner. That a pink film that kind of was very political like that. Yeah. Generally, it's not my thing. But I kind of like. I don't mind it when it sort of like sneaks into movies of a different genre, like for example this and some Oshima and stuff. Oshima seems like a good example of, kind of artsy pink stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I keep saying it, but when we get to Orgies of Edo, like when you look at the opening to Orgies of Edo, it is like a weird, grotesque theater production type opening, where it's just like going down the river in this film, and you're like,
Hmm.
this is supposed to prepare me for like a sexy film, and then you realize, oh, it's not, because Orgies of Edo is three different stories, so it's an anthology. The first one is
Mm,
tragic. The second one, it's like, okay, this is really like pink film, and this is kind of it's almost rehashing what he does in this one, actually.
mm,
But then you get to the third one, which is about like a shogun gone wild, and it has like the brazen bowl you light on, like there's there was the brazen bowl, which then you like put somebody in this bowl and you boil them alive. And in this one, it's like, fuck that. Let's get a real bowl in here, and we'll have half naked women wearing red threads. And then if they're escaping the bowl long enough, the shogun will pick up his bow and just start shooting at them because he's bored. And it's like, it's
wow.
really the orgies. There's no sex orgy in it. It's an orgy of violence, is what the title is telling you.
Oh, I see. I never knew that. Yeah.
I didn't know that when I went in, because it is a pink film, so you think like, oh, okay, like Orgies of Edo, this is going to be like a lot of fun. It's about violence, and it's like it builds up to with a scene with somebody who's pregnant, so like sex is always present and is always something that is like
Mm-hmm.
a theme, but it's not like, oh, let's just focus on this. It's really like, okay, there's political intrigue and there's violence and there's a lot of pathos. That first story in it is so sad. And so like when you see that and you're like, okay, it might be a pink film, but he's not approaching this like, let's just get nudity in it. He's approaching this like, as long as we have nudity in this, we can tell our story. It's kind of like approaching a slasher film. Like, as long as you have a death every 10 minutes, you can do what you want.
Do we have anything more to say about Horrors of Malformed Men?
I want to take a couple minutes to just talk about the him sort of coming back in. Our main character comes back into this life that wasn't his, and we have this period where he's trying to like fit in as this other guy,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's realizing that he's writing with his wrong hand, and
Mm-hmm.
or that he's supposed to be wearing glasses, and you have and then like this is a really interesting thing, like because we're watching it from his point of view, so he's trying to hide his way that he doesn't belong here, and like all these women keep thinking like he's the other guy because obviously he looks
Mm-hmm.
exactly like him, and apparently this guy had affairs with like everybody. And so like try it, I could only imagine how difficult it would be to balance an affair, let alone to balance a series of affairs while you're trying to also hide from everybody that you're not the person they had the affair with. That is that that middle section is like comical, and just how everybody keeps throwing themselves at him.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like the part where the dog doesn't like him, and it starts barking and acting like it's going to attack, and they're all like, "No, it's the master. Be nice." But really, the dog really looks kind of happy though.
Oh, the dog's like, I'm in a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope all my friends watch. That I forgot that there was a dog in the movie.
Cute German Shepherd. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
movie has a lot going for it, that even as weak as the ending is, I think that by the time you get there, the journey you've gone on has been interesting enough to pay for to feel satisfied about the cost of admission.
I think so too. I mean, I do have some issues with the movie. Really from beginning to end. There's some things, but no. Listen, I think it's a good movie. It's a weird movie. It's basically like even the ending in a way where suddenly, oh, here's this random character that will now make everything make sense, has some sort of dreamlike logic to it, you know, where it's like suddenly, oh, the dream took a turn, and now we're somewhere else, and this guy is making things make sense, and then fucking I explode and I'm shouting for mom. You know, it's just it's a weird one, but yeah.
Do you want to elaborate on some of the issues you have in the early part? Because we've talked a lot about the middle and the end, but not so much anything. Like, I've praised the opening a lot, but
I guess I don't really have many issues with the opening. It's just, it's just, and really for what it's worth, not really issues, but the um the depiction of deformities as something grotesque throughout the movie is, it's a little bit unpleasant. But again, the movie, is, it takes it to extremes, and it these are not realistic depictions of any person, but at the same time, there's still something a little bit unpleasant about some of it, and what it's, I feel, trying to say. I'm not sure I'm not
I
even sure that
feel
it's trying to say anything
I'm not
sometimes.
sure that it's trying to say anything either. But I do feel that the fact that the villain is taking people and subjecting them to it, I think, like, to me, kind of, like, if they were just like, oh, we're going to take all the deformed people and we're going to take them to this island, and they were like kidnapping deformed people,
Hmm.
I then I would have a major problem with the way that they treat it. But I feel, to a degree, like, this is an artist who specifically, and by artist I don't mean Ishii, I mean the actual villain.
Hmm.
It's a character who is trying to make grotesqueries, and if you look at them, the fact that
Right.
it's not just like, I'm going to make you look like real stuff. I think, a, they probably couldn't have done that because of Japan, for one.
Hmm.
But B, I think that kind of makes enough of a disconnect that I personally don't feel like the movie itself is so hard on grotesquerie as I feel it is on, like, the subjectation, sub subjugation of people into becoming grotesque.
Mm.
uh, which then, in a lot of ways, when I look at it, and I look at, sort of, there is a bit of a militaristic spirit to it, where it kind of makes me think of the way that, like, we our belief systems take us and turn us into, and especially our governments, not just our belief systems, take us in, like, there's a level of grotesquerie that's involved within the making of a person, generally based on governmental and societal standards, which I don't think Ishii maybe meant, but it's something that I kind of take from it.
That's an interesting take. Yeah.
But, Carol, do you got anything else?
I don't think so. I feel like the movie is one of those movies that, again, the plot really doesn't matter. It's not really about some things, and the movie takes such a swerve at the end where it tries to say this is what it's been about, and it's like, no, no, fuck off. So
It
in
was
a
about the
way,
lazy river ride. That's
yeah,
what this movie was about. That's why it exists.
and to me, it's one of those movies that it's difficult to keep coming up with things to talk about because it's hard to explain how weird some of this is. You kind of got to see it, and yeah, no, I like the movie. This is, I think, the second time I've seen it. And it's remarkably weird, but at the same time, I think kind of interesting in an artsy art. It is kind of an art film, horror film sort of thing, and I maintain that it's sort of like, it's like, what if Apocalypse Now was a Japanese horror film from the '60s directed by an exploitation master.
And I would say it's like, what if Island of Lost Souls was an art film?
Mm.
Like,
Hmm.
it's just this sort of weird fusion of pieces that kind of come together to make something really neat. And it's we're talking about it, we only have access to the verbal realm, where really this is the type of film that you don't really like. The sound will help, sure, but if you put it on mute and watch it, you're going to get what was intended to be gotten from this.
Yeah, it's very visual based storytelling, very much.
So, Cal, you want to tell the folks what we're going to be watching next week?
So next week, so in the coming weeks, we're going to be watching all of the, well, I hope all of the original Japanese Ring films, Ringu, if you prefer. But we're starting out next week with the Hideo Nakata original Ring, and I think we're going to have our guest Chris Vanderkay, who guested on the Kwaidan episode a few weeks back, maybe a couple months back. I don't know. Time has no meaning, but we're going to hope to have him sit down, and then we're going to hope to have other guests for the other Ring films going forward.
Yeah, we're looking to do Ring, Ring 2, Raison, and Ring 0.
Yeah,
And then
Raisin
we'll
slash
have some,
Spiral. Yeah.
yeah, and then we'll have some treats for people that we'll keep those ones up our sleeve.
Yeah, but we basically have like at least a month's worth of Ring episodes planned going forward, and it feels like you know, we got the nod to Ring in the opening theme. It's not music, but it is a theme of our show, so it feels right that we get to it at some point, and might as well do them all at once because they
All right.
again they are on Shutter right now. I don't know if Raisin slash Spiral is. That one might be on YouTube though, but
It
they're
is
all
on YouTube.
okay. But they're all on Blu-ray also from Arrow Video now.
And speaking, I mean, we already did One Missed Call.
Hmm.
That's part of our intro,
We did the trilogy. Yeah,
the Ju-on, and we did the series. So
yeah.
the Ring is the only one we're not representing right now.
We'll
And
probably get
so
to the we'll probably get to the Shimizu Ju-on movies at some point
we
soon.
definitely will. We'll probably get to the Ring TV series at some point.
Mm,
There was a couple of those, and
yeah.
then you know what, you could call what we're doing a Ringapalooza.
Ring of Palooza. Yeah. So yeah, we got a lot of scary girls crawling out of TVs in the weeks ahead, and we
Whew,
hope
let
you
me
tune
tell you,
in.
dream come true.
And we hope you tune in. And again, if you want to watch them ahead of time, they're on DVD and Blu-ray, and a lot of them are on Shutter if you're a subscriber.
So look forward to that next week and in the weeks that follow.
Yeah, yeah. And until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you then.